A lot of folks who are proud of their ancestors. So those people that mess with this flag, they're just a pitiful handful of people compared to us. We're proud of it. We're proud of what it stands for. And we're proud of the actions our ancestors took. They were of their time. Nobody gonna stand up here and defend slavery. But they were of their time, and they believed that they were right to do what they did. And their cause stands up today in a lot of ways. It sure does. But now, there is an enormous, concentrated effort, a collusion, almost like a conspiracy, against us, against the descendants, against our region, against the Confederacy, against the cause, against the effort, against everything about it, and anybody who will say a good word about it. And we're being called racist. We've heard that a lot. But also our ancestors are being called traitors. Our flag and our symbols are being compared to the Nazi swastika. What's going on? Well, we weren't hearing that 50 years ago at the centennial. I didn't hear it 10 or 15 years ago. It's coming out of academia. It's coming out of northeastern universities. It's coming out of history departments. And they're in collusion with certain left-wing political interests who want to see this happen. It's also controlled by the media. The media is completely bought into this northern myth. They always talk about the southern myth and this and that. How about their own myth? Oh, Lincoln was a saintly guy who went to free the slaves and those terrible Southerners while they were whipping the slaves. Nonsense. And if you read even basic history, you come to understand that. The Lincoln in his first inaugural said, slavery's fine with me. A year and a half into the war, he wrote to Horace Greeley and said, look, if we can have the Union, that's fine. I don't care if it's slavery or not, as long as I can save the Union. That was Abraham Lincoln. That was his position. And his position on black folks was to send them all back to Africa, put them on islands out in the Caribbean or something. Whereas in the South, the black folks and the white folks, even though that relationship had not been equal for the most part, that would never cross their mind. They knew each other. They were part of each other's families in a way. They had shared that culture. But that was Lincoln. So they've got their myths too, and now they're reinforcing those myths, and they've got a lot of help. Corporations who will not allow the display of that sacred symbol in their buildings, in their parking lots, anything to do with it. No. I got in a big fight. Bubba Watson, the great golfer from Alabama, he won the Masters tournament. He's won it twice now. The first time he won it, Bubba was a huge Dukes of Hazzard thing. And he bought one of the first cars that we destroyed on that show, put it back together, and he's proud. One of the very first, generally, I think that was junked. He's got it. Put a lot of money into it, as proud as he can be of it. He had a friend, I forget which guy it was, a NASCAR driver, who was driving out to Phoenix. They were playing a golf tournament in Phoenix. The NASCAR race was in Phoenix. And the guy said, why don't you bring that car over and do a pace lap at the Phoenix International Raceway for that big NASCAR race? And Bob said, great. Phoenix people said, great. Everything was fine with everybody. Except NASCAR, who said, you're not going to put that car on our track because of that flag. NASCAR from Charlotte, North Carolina, actually from back up in Wilkes County. That's where all that started. Junior Johnson, Lee Petty, and all those boys hauling moonshine. That's where NASCAR came from. But they forgot where it came from. They're in the big time now. They've gotten above their razor. And they turned on their own people. So, I tell you, the black folks that I have known are just like everybody else. And they can understand context. I was talking in Franklin a week or so ago to a black lady who was there, who was a reenactor. And I said, you know, Andy Young, who was Dr. King's right-hand man, told me that they had no problem at all with Confederate flags. They knew those people were hateful. But other than that, they knew it was not going to go away. It was something that represented to a lot of people a very good thing. The spirit of the South, the independence, rebelliousness, all that stuff that had been around a long time. They didn't have a problem with it. And I said, yeah, you know, my experience has been that people, everybody understands context. If you see that flag in a museum, you honor those. If you see that flag, at a battlefield, you understand why it's there. If you see that flag on the top of the General Lee, that's a good and positive thing. If you see it on whatever, box of rice, something like that, we know what that means. That's the South. It's not a bad thing. But now, what's going on? It's a symbol. See, it's as if it only can mean one thing to these people. Because they are the ones, they used to accuse us of. They are the ones, prejudice means to prejudge. They are prejudging us. We're good-hearted people. We're Christians. We try to love everybody and share with everybody and take people, as Dr. King said, based not on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. That's a good thing. But these people would say, no, if you have that flag, you're a racist, you're a Nazi, you're a traitor, you're a slave owner, you're a bigot. And that very position is one of the most prejudicial and bigoted things I've ever heard. It's like they're like the Nazis. We're going to destroy your culture. We're going to take all your flags down. And what's the next thing? Don't dress up like those people. They're at war with us, and they stole a march on us too. So NASCAR, we let them know pretty good. Another one I got into like that was with Warner Brothers. They were going to take the flag on their toy cars off the General Lee. And we found out about it. And hooked up. It turns out there's a website, Dix Hazard Facebook page, got 500,000 hits on it, likes. That's a lot of people you hook up with. And the one we've got for our store has more than 50,000, something like that. We can get a hold of a lot of people in a hurry. And they put it on Warner Brothers. We're outraged by this. We're not going to buy any of your products. We're not going to go to any of your movies or TV shows, anything. And they got swamped, crashed their computers and all that stuff. And so now the flag is still on the car. But we're surrounded. We all know what happened with Washington and Lee. The worst example, the worst case scenario of political correctness run amok. The president of the college responding to a young African-American law student who said he felt uncomfortable, felt unwelcome seeing the Confederate battle flag at the burial place of General Robert E. Lee. So the president didn't say, well, son, you got to understand there's a lot of history here. General Lee was the president of our college, saved the school, and his son was the president of the college too, one of his sons. And there's a great tradition here. There's no harm meant, and you shouldn't take any harm from this. He was one of the greatest Americans. He didn't say that. He said, well, we want to be sensitive and inclusive and have diversity, so we're going to remove those flags and put them down in the basement. That happened at Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. A group of Sons of Confederate Veterans in Maryland sent a check to an organization, a great charity, really, when you think about it. What these folks do is they connect wounded warriors with service dogs. They find the dog and they train them and all that stuff. That's a good thing. And these guys, most of these guys were veterans, so they raised some money for these folks who asked for help, money raising, called Hero Dogs. These SCV guys went out, raised a few $100, about $500, and sent it to them. And they refused it. I assume because the logo was there, our logo, which has the St. Andrew's cross on it. They refused the money, sent it back. This is you've gone nuts. You start to say, what is going on in this world? Here are these good-hearted people went out and raised this money for this good cause because they've been asked to, a caring, loving gesture, and they're rejected our money. Well, it doesn't stop there. Now at the University of Mississippi, their president formed a committee for inclusion and diversity and all this stuff, and gender identification, all this business. As part of that, he wants to, and is going to, as I understand, take down the name Confederate Drive off the campus there. Because I guess it makes some people feel whatever. It's gone that far and further. I could stand here and talk about this and these violations of our honor, of our ancestors' honor, by the hour. This is what's going on. At the University of Mississippi, when the war broke out, 100 young men who were the students there, the entire student body joined the Southern Army. Many of them died at Pickett's Crossing, the charge across the tops of trees. One of them came back. And it's those young men that Confederacy Drive honors. I'm going to quote Dr. King again. When he said in this speech, I have a dream that someday the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will dine together at the table of brotherhood. And people have done that in the South. The most integrated place I've ever seen in the world. It's us sitting together, hey, working together, how you doing? He didn't say, I have this dream where we sit together, if y'all take down your flag, or if you dishonor your ancestors, or if you turn your back on your family, or if you accept being called a Nazi and a traitor and a racist by sanctimonious northern scholars. He didn't say that because he knew that if we're going to make this thing work as a country, as a nation, and particularly to rebuild our region together, that we had to accept reality and accept our past, our shared past, and to build a shared future. And that was about healing and working together and coming together. It was about bridge building. It wasn't about censorship and attack and demanding that we eradicate our culture and our history. How divisive, that's the most divisive thing I've ever heard what these people are doing. And they've all bought into it. The media's bought into it, publishing houses, cable television shows. You don't hear people on those shows talking about, like you don't see people like me saying what I think. Because, oh, that's a hot button issue. Oh, no, it's just, because they all feel that way pretty much. We need some help. Well, there's 30,000 members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and we're not going to back up an inch. Now, I'm thinking, I was asked to, I've been a member of some year Turner Ashby camp up in Winchester, Virginia. And my interest in this subject has been one of my, quote-unquote, intellectual pursuits for a long time. I've studied this. I've been to the battlefields like so many of us have. And in my opinion, the Sons of Confederate Veterans membership knows more about American history, particularly the war between the states, than any number of college history faculties you can find. We know this stuff. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about too, don't you? And so for me, this is also a learning experience, just being a part of this great fellowship with my compatriots. I learned a lot. Down in Franklin the other day. Franklin's an untold story. Biggest charge, magnify that 4 times and you know what those men did, crossing a 2-mile field against an entrenched cannonade. They knew Patrick Cleburne, the great Irish general, says to General Devine. Devine says, this doesn't look good. I don't know if we're going to live through this day. And Cleveland said, well, goodbye. If we must die, let us die like men. That kind of courage, what they showed, is something that we have to have just a little bit of. And we have it. We've got it in our DNA. We've got to stand up. And we've got us 30,000 members. Well, we all know 10 people. We all know 10 people we can talk to. And ask those 10 people to talk to 10 people. And pretty soon you've got a crowd. And we need to connect up with those other 70 million Americans. And there are groups out there who are doing this and working together. I actually have faith and I believe that the good hearts of the American people are on our side here. They can tell that that's all just a bunch of politically correct nonsense. And when they look around, they realize that, hey, didn't our great-grandfather's cousin fight there at Shiloh or something? Yeah. This is an American thing. They want to blame us for all the sins of America. Great book called Complicity. I hope you all will read it. It's written by 3 staffers at the Hartford Current. And here's the reason why. Because it says better than anything I've ever read. That yes, while the South had slavery and the agricultural economy of picking cotton, it was the North who built the ships, the slave ships, who went to Africa. And Northerners who purchased those people from Arabs and from other black people in Africa and brought them back and sold them. And what they did then was the banks in Wall Street, etc., financed these plantations, insured the slaves, provided these plantations with what they needed in terms with loans. And then, who bought the cotton? They bought the cotton. Some of the cotton went to England, but a lot of it, most of it, went to mills in Massachusetts and Lawrence, places in Lowell, Massachusetts, gigantic textile mills, buying this cotton from the South. We were picking it, they were taking it back, they were using it, and they were getting rich off of it. And on the eve of the war, there was a big meeting in Wall Street. And I didn't know this, I should have known this. These really heavy hitters in New York and Wall Street saying, we've got to stop Lincoln, we've got to stop this war, this is going to kill our profits. So, we picked the cotton, they made the money. The North is complicit in this. And somehow or another, part of their myth is they had nothing to do with it. They were totally involved, up to their ears, and they're the ones that made so much money off of it. And it built New York City. Brown University, we all know about that. It should. Rhode Island built that. Rhode Island, Browns were big slavery. It's just, slavery was the national sin. It was not the sin of the South. It was the sin of the nation, the South part of the nation. And it had gone on when the Civil War started for over 250 years. The first slaves that came in, it's interesting, in 1619, where I grew up in Jamestown, Virginia, just very near there. Those slaves were both black and white. They were indentured servants. That was the first group. That changed a lot over years, but it had existed under the British flag from 1619 until, say, 1776, when the Revolution started. Figure it out, it's 160, almost 160 years under that British flag, through the 1600s and the 1700s. Then it existed in every state in the new Union, with all of New England. Massachusetts was the first to ban it, but they still kept slaves. Every colony, and then every state in the Union, from 1776 until 1865. And I don't say 1861. It existed under the Star-Spangled Banner, that great beautiful flag, from 1776 until 1865, because all of the slaves who were in Union territory remained in slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation freed no slave. We need to know this history now more than ever, because we have to rebut the myths and the attack. And it's almost an hysteria in academia And you imagine a college president suddenly going in inspired to